Today we're going to be talking about interactive or creating interactive web reports and some of the different features we have in Dream Report to accomplish that. But before we actually get into how we do that, I just one quick slide on what the Dream Report web portal is. So the Dream Report web portal comes with Dream Report. Every license of Dream Report starting from this 4.8 release will include at least one web client. The web portal, it's a single button click to configure it. You don't have to be a web developer. It builds you the default website. And it's a great way to get access to your existing reports, so reports that are generated automatically, daily, weekly, monthly, by batch. Dream Report maintains a history of those reports. You can go in, click on a report, and it'll bring up that document immediately. You can also use this the web portal out of the box to dynamically generate reports with different time periods. So for instance, we're looking here at a monthly operating report, but maybe I want to use this exact same report to look at the last 2 weeks of operation. So simply by clicking on the new dynamic report button, it'll bring up a date and time picker or a relative time picker or a batch picker, and you can specify the time period and it'll then generate the report on the fly. You don't have to do anything special to change your report to accept this dynamic time period, and you can now then of course generate a dynamic report. And again, out of the box, nothing special has to be done to build a report to use this functionality in the web portal. The web portal is accessible through any modern generation web browser, desktop browser, or smartphone, iOS, Android, Microsoft Mobile. And the web portal is actually laid out and optimized for mobile devices if that's where you're accessing it from versus a desktop type browser. The web portal can be secured, so who can get into the web reports and who can do what on the website. And then you can take it one step further, or many steps further. So all of this again is out of the box functionality, but you might want to build your own interactive front end for your reports. Maybe put customized filters for your users with your own date and time pickers. Maybe combo boxes or cascading combo boxes. Maybe select a production order based on that. Find all the materials that were used in that production order based on the user making that selection, then generate the report. Maybe put a hyperlink on there then to drill down and get me the quality details about the running of this production order. So this is what we talk about when we say interactive web reports. We have these various web elements, we call them, to build these type of interfaces for your reports. So to create a report for the Dream Report web portal, you can do nothing special. That's the first option. Simply take any existing report that you've already developed in your Dream Report project, and now with the dynamic time or batch definition in the web portal, you can generate it, as I mentioned, for any time user-defined time period. You can take any existing report you already have and kind of web enable it. And by doing that, we have several options, just checkboxes and various drawing or reporting objects. For instance, if you've got a single data object which does a calculation, let's say a time and state or an average value over the running of a batch or a week or whatever it is, if you enable this feature, then on the web report, when you click on that calculation, it'll pop up the raw data behind there, or bring up a chart, or save it off to a CSV file. So being able to get to the details behind the information or the data, if you will. Dynamic sorting and filtering in a table, just a checkbox, and your report now becomes more interactive. Web charts, being able to click on charts and get the raw data for any values behind that chart or feeding the chart, or actually be able to interact with the chart by zooming in and out with your mouse scroll button, hovering over points, those kind of things. And then again, as I said, showing raw data on the charts. And then finally, you can create reports specifically for the web portal using what we call web elements. And so this is when you design this report is not a PDF document, it is an HTML5 output. Again, you don't have to know how to build the HTML5, you just tell Dream Report it's a web report. And then you have these various options for date and time pickers, combo boxes, manual data entry if users want to enter, say, wildcard searches on data, tree objects for tag selections, especially if you have a kind of a hierarchical layout of data in your data sources. Action buttons which you can put on your report to generate a report, refresh a report, save it as a PDF, log in, log off as a different user. A lot of functionality is pre-canned behind this action button. And then hyperlinking, which allows you, one, to create a hyperlink to an external URL. So maybe you've got an MSDS sheet that you want to bring up, or a weather site, or something that you want to link to your report. And that hyperlink can be made dynamic. So based on user selections on the screen, you build that hyperlink, and then you can jump out to some other website. Maybe it's an internal SharePoint site, for instance. Or internal hyperlinks, which allow you then to click on the hyperlink, either it's a raw hyperlink or a hyperlink in a table, and then open another report, passing parameters to it. So it's really kind of what we would like to think of as drill down reporting. So you put the hyperlink, you tell it what the destination is going to be, which report. Do I want to pass any parameters to that destination report? What's the output of that final or next level report? Is it PDF? Do I want to email it? So the hyperlinking is very flexible for our internal hyperlinks. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, also being able to access raw data points just simply by enabling this raw data hyperlink and clicking on a number, popping up the raw data, looking at a chart, and really giving you much faster access to your knowledge, not having to jump from one application to another to try and drill down to see what's going on. So in the next 25 minutes or so, that's what we're going to do. We'll look at the three kind of ways, starting from just an out-of-the-box report to a very interactive report and an ad hoc kind of analysis screen of different ways to utilize these features in the Dream Report web portal. What I have here now is my Dream Report studio. This is a new, actually it's almost a new project. What I've already done on here is created some data sources and a batch definition, but there's no reports other than just a blank report that I'm ready to start with. So instead of, this is not a presentation on the basics of Dream Report, how to build a report. We're assuming you already know how to build the basic report in Dream Report, which I've done. So what I'm going to do now is just apply an existing report template. One of the great features of Dream Report is being able to get or save reports as templates, apply them from one project to the next or within the same project. So up comes this little batch report. It's set up right now for, everything is based on a batch definition for the last batch that ran. And then we've got an automatic statistic table here to summarize our data. We've got some time and state calculations. We've got charts. So let's go ahead and reload our reports. And what it's doing now is loading this report into our runtime project. Now I want to build a website. Well, we don't have all day, but that's okay, because all we need to do is click Configure IIS. And what this is doing now is building us the website. Done, the website is built. And let's open the web portal now. And we should have one report there called Batch Report. And if I go and generate or open this report, what we have here is the report. Actually, this is one I ran yesterday. I could certainly generate the new one for the most recent batch report. And just by clicking this now, you'll see a history of the reports that have run in the past for this by month, by year. This is obviously a new project, so there's not a lot of history in here. But this is actually generating it from scratch. And here's our report, which we have this batch, which started, the last batch started on the 11th, ended on the 20th, and any key parameters we have in here, and alarm and events. So there we have the use of a report in a web portal. Now let's take it one level further. Without doing anything to this report, I don't want to look at the last batch. I want to look at a specific batch that ran maybe 2 years ago, or some other time period. All I need to do, well, first of all, if the reports were automatically generating, it would maintain a history of them, but maybe you're only keeping, say, the last 30 reports online. So you could go and click on one, and up comes the report for this different batch, 420. But I know I need to go and look at an old report. So now I can come up here to the new dynamic report button, and I can either pick a specific date range. I could use a fixed period, say the last 2 hours, but no, this is a batch report, so I'm going to use batch-based. I don't want to look at the last batch, but I actually want to look up a batch. And now this goes back into my history wherever I've defined my batches. And let's say I want to look at batch number 380 and go ahead and generate that report. So without me doing anything special to redesign that report, because the report was designed for the last one batch, simply by using the dynamic report generator inside of the web portal, we now have batch 380. It ran on April 8th through the 13th in 2013. And here's the process data and alarms and events, etc. for this batch that ran back then. Okay, so that's our first example of just showing you how to take an existing report and how you might generate it over different time periods or different batch definitions from within the web portal. So now what we're going to do is back to Studio, and we're going to kind of web enable this report. So we have quite a few options here. Well, first of all, what I'd like to do is just tell Dream Report that the file format is not just PDF, because that's our default format. We are going to also say this is going to be a web-enabled report, meaning the output format in addition to PDF will be HTML5. So let's take a look at some objects. What can we do here? So here we have a calculation. How long did we maintain temperature during the last batch between 70 and 80 degrees? So that's just a standard built-in statistical function, duration in the interval. And that's what we picked from here. But I'd like to know what the raw data actually was. What were my temperatures during the running of the batch, or the raw data? So now I can come down to hyperlink configuration and say do a raw data hyperlink. Or for instance, we had an energy meter. Then we want to look at how the energy was consumed during the running of the batch. Again, go to Appearance and choose raw data hyperlink. Okay. Let's go to this chart. For this chart, I would like to first of all be able to click on the chart and look at all the raw data on the pens behind this chart, and even interact with it with my mouse. So it's now a dynamic chart, not just a static trend of the data. Maybe it's my bar chart here, looking at my tank levels at the end of the batch, and I would like to look at see how my levels were being manipulated during the running of the batch. And if I could find where my link is here, I can't find it right now. Show raw data in the web, that's all it is. And so there's another option there. And the last thing here, let's also put on a table. Let's see how we can web enable this table. Let's put on here an option to auto dynamically sort our alarms and events or dynamically filter. So just gone into these different objects, and all we did was click on checkboxes and to kind of web enable this report. So now I'm going to reload this report, and let's see how this report differs from the first version that we looked at. So the report is now loaded into our project, and we go back. Let's come back in here, and now you'll see there's the PDF version and a web version. So we'll click on the web link, and now this brings up the exact same report for the last one batch. Let's just wait for it to come up. And let's see the differences. Well, here we see hyperlinks now under these values, where before they were static. So we maintained temperature in this 15-degree range for 14 hours during the running of this batch. Let me take a look at those numbers, those temperatures. There's all the raw data. Show me a quick chart, and that's how my temperatures were ramping up and down. Hover over a point to get an actual value, use my mouse to zoom in and out. So now we really are able to drill in to this data just by starting from a calculation and working our way back. Or how was our energy meter, what did it look like? A pretty constant ramp up during the running of this batch. Here's our chart. It looks a little different because now we have an interactive web chart. We can turn buttons on and off. You see, we can again zoom in and out, go back to the original scaling, show me the raw data on this chart, and I don't want to look at it for all of it. Let's just say for temperature 1 and 2. And up comes the data for temperature 1 and 2, and again save it off. And then finally for our alarms and events. Right now I'm sorting by number of occurrences. Let's say I want to sort by alarm priority, descending or ascending, because that was the feature I checked to dynamically sort. Maybe I want to look for anything to do with things running. And right away, it dynamically filters to any production runs, motor runs, pump stops, anything to do with temperature. Okay, so that would be a dynamic sorting and filtering on a web report. So without really doing too much other than a few checkboxes, I've taken an existing report I have, and I've now made it more of an interactive web report. Not necessarily designing it for the web, because I originally started off as a PDF report, but I've certainly taken it to a much more interactive report than what it was as a static web document, which of course has no hyperlinks. I can't zoom in or out, I can't search. This is fine if you need a hard, unchangeable copy, but there's normally different classes of users or categories of users who have different needs of your data. So that's when you might want to provide different formats of the same report for your different users. All right, now we're going to go completely starting from scratch and build a quick kind of ad hoc analysis report. So I will create a new one. We'll just call this ad hoc report. We'll make the file format completely PDF, and let's make it landscape. And very quickly, what I'm going to do here is just throw a quick chart on our report, a line chart. And I'm just going to put 2 tanks, say, add that one, add tank 1 and add tank 2. And appearance, let's say automatic, 0 based, and show the legend. And that's it. I don't really care about this. All I want is a basic chart set up to work with. Underneath that chart, I would like to put a, let's say, an automatic statistic table to summarize some data. So I'll pop that over here. And over here, we just browse for a couple of random tags. It really doesn't matter what we put in here, because the end game or the goal of this is to provide the user their own date and time pickers. So we don't really care about what time periods are selected in these objects right now. And we're also going to give them a tag picker that they can switch, and not even a tag picker, a data source picker, so that they can pick data from any data source and pick the tags and then dynamically populate this report. So I'm just going to go, let's say, to my process system and grab those 3 tanks or temperatures there. And very quickly, I'd like to show over the time period the min, when did we hit the min, the max, timestamp of the max of min, and then the average. And we'll just say data summary. Okay, so very rudimentary report. Won't do too much formatting here, other than just to make sure things fit. And whoops, max time, and then average. Okay. At this point now, we are ready to start making this little interactive. So I would like to, I'm going to put some labels first on my report. And the labels are going to be as follows. Let's say start time. Put another one here. And again, forgive my lack of formatting, but because of time, that we just want to get the concept across of how to put these together. Start time, end time. Let's say another one which will say select data source. And then finally, we want to give the users the opportunity to pick, duplicate that, select tags. Okay, so the first 2 objects we'll put up here will be date and time pickers. And let's just equal space this. So now we go to our web elements, and we'll put a timestamp picker, and we'll put one here, and we'll call this thing start. Okay, and I'll copy that down here, and this one I will call end. Okay. Now we want to choose a data source. So this would be a combo box. And we'll put a combo box over here, and we'll call this, let's call it data source. So just give the object a name. And then what do we want, how do we want to populate this combo box? Show a list of my different data sources. Okay, so this will allow the user, so if you've got in your project a connection to an energy management system or a process historian or your HMI or whatever your different data sources are, you can allow the users to pick the different data sources and then, of course, pick the appropriate tags for them. So that's my data source. And then the last one I'm going to put over here is a combo box. I'll just again duplicate this, and we'll call this tag list. And so what do we want this to do now? Show a list of tags. From what data source? Well, we don't want to hard code the data source, so we're going to say select the data source from another object. And so this is the object based on wherever they pick here, the data source, this tag list will update. So over here, based on what they choose in the combo box data source, this will now populate. All right, and at this point now, we just need to put 1 or 2 more buttons on here so we can refresh our report. So let's go back to our web element and put an action button on here. And let's just say refresh report. And all we want to do here is refresh report. But now there's two things. Somehow we have to pass these start and end times into our objects, and somehow we have to get our tag names into these objects. So how do we do that? So right here we say make dynamic tag replacement, get my tag list from this guy here, tag list. And then for what's going to be dynamic in terms of time period, dynamic time period is used. Select the object for the start time. So that was our start time picker and our end time picker. And now we've kind of linked together the time pickers and the tag picker. One thing I forgot to put here was I want to allow users to pick multiple tags. So we're going to allow multi-selection here. So we can do that. All right, let's reload this report and see what we get. So here's our new ad hoc report. Let's open that up. And we should have pretty much nothing on our reports. Okay, we set that to the default time, but now we can choose a time period. Let's say I want to look at my energy meters from the and temperature from the start of the month. Let's say at midnight on the start of the month to now is fine, and choose my data source. I want to get it from my energy data source, and it looks up my tags, and now I can refresh the report, and here is my energy consumed and my outside temperature since February 1st up until now. So that was using being able to choose different data sources and then populate a combo box. You might have a data source that's in a tree structure. So I'm going to get rid of this simple combo box and rather put a tree object over here. And just to show you what this looks like, I'll just give it a name, tag tree. And select the data source below from another combo box. Again, we'll get it from our... And we do want to show both the folder structure and the tags contained within that. Okay, and then the last thing over here is we need to not reference, excuse me, the old tag picker I had, but now my tree object. Okay, so now we'll have a slightly different structure. And let's see if we have any data sources that have a hierarchical structure. So back to the web report. Let's choose, say, just from the beginning of this hour. Choose a data source. Let's see, do we have any? This is a flat structure. All right, so that's a flat structure, and we can, again, pick tags. Or again, let's take another shot at our historian, see if it shows up. Okay, there we go. So my historian has a folder structure. I want to go down to my plant tags, and I want to look at these 3 flow meters from my historian. So that's using a tree object to build our, to select our tags. And this has gone out to since the start of the hour, and there's my data from my historian. Okay, we're now going to return back to our batch report and show you how to make it an interactive web report. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this report and I'm going to make a couple of changes to it. I'm going to get rid of my header so I have more space up here. And I'm going to put over here a combo box that just has my batch list. So we can allow users to pick their own batches from here. So we'll show a list of batch definitions and batch ID list. Okay, so this now will let them select their batch ID. And then what I would also like to do here is let them refresh the report. So we can put an action button. And simply refresh the report. But one key thing here, instead of making a dynamic tag replacement or time periods, what we're going to use now is dynamic batch, not time periods, but batch based. And then it says select the object containing my batch definitions, and that was that combo box CB batch list I put up there. Okay, so we're not done yet here. What I also want to do is be able to put a hyperlink, for instance, over here. And when I click on this, I want to drill down to another report. So I'm going to very quickly create a new report called Alarm Details. And let's go, I've already saved a template for this alarm details. So let's go and apply a report template. And here it is. And this report shows me over the last batch. I'm using the alarm table object. Show me all of these alarm fields for the last batch. But somehow I now want to link these two objects together. When I click on a hyperlink on my batch report, I want to get to this alarm tables report, alarm details, and only show the alarms and events for the selected batch that the user selected up top here. So how do we do that? Well, we use the concept here of something called a internal project parameter. Actually, we're going to do one more thing here. Not only do we want to allow them to hyperlink, because we can hyperlink without an internal project parameter. Maybe we also want to let them just filter certain batch alarms. So I could put in here, this is another web element, where is this over here? We'll call this our alarm filter. So I'm putting this in, and what I want to do with this is allow a user to do some free-form data entry. So I've just got a little dummy manual data entry point here. We'll call data entry string. And we can let them put a wildcard search in there. Okay. So when I hyperlink this thing now, what I want to do is somehow pass this alarm filter and get it over to the alarm details report so that it can filter that table based on whatever filter the user selected on the main report. So to do that now, we need a placeholder. And we have internal entities or objects called internal project parameters. And these are think of them as global parameters or placeholders that you can put values from one report and then reference them in the next report. So it's kind of a global place to hold things. And you can have as many internal project parameters as you want. So I created one called IPP, Internal Project Parameter Alarm Filter, that's going to hold a string value. Okay, now let's put a hyperlink on this report. So back to the web element. We're going to say over here something like this is going to be a specific report to open. So we're going to do an internal hyperlink. Which report are we going to open? The alarm details. We want to show dynamic parameters. So we now, when I click on this hyperlink, that internal project parameter is set its value from this report from that, I don't know if we can see it here, that little manual data entry field I put in there. So we're going to take that manual enter value, put it in this internal project parameter, and then the user will be able to get to that report, that parameter. Whoops, I didn't say that. So IPP there and add it. Okay, so that's how we're adding this internal project parameter when we click the hyperlink. And let's just call this hyperlink show alarm details. Okay, something like that. Do we have all the pieces and parts in place? Almost. The last thing now is on our alarm details, we have to somehow make use of that filter that came in. In our table, we have something called an advanced SQL condition where we can put a kind of like a where expression that filters out with our alarm text, whatever the wildcard is that the user sent in. But we cannot just reference that internal project parameter directly from here. So I'm going to put a little object, an expression object on this report. And we'll call this expression filter. And where's this going to get its value from? It's going to get that internal project parameter that was set on the calling report and pass it in here. So now this report has this filter, and I can make it hidden if I wanted to. I don't actually have to show it. I could just make it invisible. And now in our filter, I know that the column in my database was called alarm, what's it called? Alarm text. And I can say like, and then we'll do a wildcard. We can say %. Now we can reference that expression filter. So what we've done here is made a dynamic where expression based on that internal project parameter being passed in from one report. It shows up on this report. It's now can be used in here, and then we can dynamically filter this report based on a selection on one report. So there's really two things we're doing here. We are hyperlinking from one report to another, and we're also taking advantage of internal project parameters to take parameters from one report, pass them to another, and then utilize them in the destination report. So let's see if I have got all the parts and pieces in place here correctly. We can even have made this alarm details report hidden, by the way. You don't actually have to show it here. So let's say the only way you can get to this report, we'll make it part of the runtime, but don't show it in the list. The only way to get to it is from another report. So getting back to our web portal, I've made a change, so I just got to reload it. Okay, so now you don't even see that alarm details report. So here's our batch report. Let's choose a different one. Let's go back to batch number 150. And okay, so now I can say refresh. So now this is the first thing, dynamically generating this report based on my own combo box we put, which showed our batch IDs. Batch 150 ran back in 2008 over a couple of days. Let's go down to page 2 here. Let's put a filter in here, and let's just say anything to do with temperature. And now let's click on the hyperlink. Okay, and we're now at the destination report. That was for that same batch. Actually, I'm showing the wrong one up here. I didn't catch the right batch ID. I'll have to fix that. But it passed in the temperature, anything to do with temperature. It passed in over here, and I know exactly why. I missed one thing on the hyperlink. Remember up here when I set up this button to refresh this report, one of the things I had to say was dynamic parameters and make sure I passed in the batch to this report, the selected batch. I need to do the same thing for this hyperlink. There's nothing here telling it right now that I'm passing a batch ID. So I edit the hyperlink, and it's not enough just to say which report I'm going to. I also need to tell it that I am using dynamic time period. I need to send this batch ID over to the destination as well. So this one is for the hyperlink, the other one was for the parent, this main batch report. So let's just reload our report one last time, and then we'll open it up for any questions. Okay, so back to our batch report. Of course, the last batch that ran was about a 3-week batch. It's a lot of data it's extracting, but that's okay. Let's find a shorter one, hopefully. Let's say batch number 320. And 320, I think, was from around about 2013, if I'm not mistaken. 2012. So here's our batch report from then. Let's go down to our details, and again, I could just put a wildcard. I could have actually put a default in there of %, and that would have then brought back all the alarms. But since I didn't set up, or since we want to look at a filter, let's do anything to do with temperatures and get me all the alarm details. That was an alarm summary. And so here we go for this batch 320 from back in 2012. Any temperature alarms, temperature high, temperature grows, and temperature was fine. Certainly I've covered the fundamentals of all the different building blocks. Now, how complex and how detailed you want to make this, it's up to you. But knowing where to find these different objects and how they interrelate to each other is key. And really, I think you can do a lot with what you probably already have in your projects. Or if you're a systems integrator and you get a requirement from a customer, hopefully the wheels are turning now to say, yes, absolutely, we could do that. We could build our own interface to meet the customer's specific data filtering needs or drill down capabilities using the web portal.